Welcome back to another book review that's going to be a little different. I know I say it a lot, but it's going to be a bit different today because today is about the Red Rising series. Now, interesting fact, this is actually my third time recording this video. As you can see, it's probably playing right now. Editor of future me is putting in the clips of where I tried to film this video and it failed twice previously. I spent all of, what month is it? I spent all of April reading book 2, 3, and 4 of the Red Rising series. Now, I made a promise to myself to finish series this year. I picked up Game of Thrones and I had not completed it. I had picked up the King of Sin series and the Wang series, and I had yet to complete it. I'm about to read book 3 and finish it before hopping back into sci-fi. But I didn't know I was choosing the longest series I possibly could. Now, I know it isn't Brandon Sanderson's a Kashmir series, but the Red Rising series in general is pretty long. So I had originally known that it was 3 books, Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morningstar. I then found out, of course, it's actually 7 books, excluding a graphic novel, which is The Sons of Ares. But basically, it is 7 books. Book 7 coming up, The Red Guard, which will be released whenever the case is. So, of course, I chose to complete the series, which has 6 current books with 1 coming. And that is a lot because these books are not lightweight. They are 600, 500, 400 pages of heavy material. And Pierce Brown knows how to write a book, I can tell you that. So, I've read book 2, I've read book 3, and during that time I also finished book 4 while I was failing to film the other 2 reviews. So, I wanted to pack them into one video. It's of course going to be a bit longer than usual, but I just wanted to recap obviously Golden Sun, Morningstar and Iron Gold while I can, while it's still fresh in my head, which unfortunately I had to go and do a bit of a recap while failing to record it. And I just wanted to go over it quickly, get into it, and my thoughts on the series so far and where it's going. So first and foremost, Golden Sun. If you watched my series or my review of Red Rising, you know that I had thoughts about Darrow and Red Rising in general. I had thoughts about how I could not get behind him a lot of the times, how he was prone to making mistakes, he was set in his ways. And I'm a very avid fan of The Will of the Many and Vers Telemus, which by many accounts is a very addicting book with a very good MC. So to go from reading that to go read Darrow was a bit of a struggle because he is flawed in many ways. But Golden Sun elevated my opinion and my feelings towards Darrow and the entire series itself. In my opinion, Golden Sun is the best package that Pierce Brown has put out in the series so far. I've read 4 books again, but in my opinion, it is the best package. It is an amazing beginning that puts you head first into the world, head first into the new problem, head first into the thing that is going to be driving us forward. An amazing plot that keeps you completely enthralled and invested, regardless of how long and how far the book you need to still go. It is just that good. And then the ending itself is amazing. It is not the best ending in the series, but in my honest opinion, it has all the right ingredients and every single thing is complementing each other to make this amazing book. In my opinion, the best out of the 4 that I've read, and right now, the best out of the 7. But if you don't know, book 1 ended with Darrow winning the event where the Golds had to fight each other to become Peerless Scarred, and they had to fight Limbus and everything like that, and Darrow won. And essentially, he had graduated and then became adopted by Mustang's father, Nero, I believe. Nero Adradomus. Of course, that solved the plot of book one, which was obviously that Darrow was now placed by the Sons of Ares in that academy, but he had won the games as he was supposed to. He had now placed himself in a position where he can infiltrate and he can obviously help the Sons of Ares. But that was the issue in book one. And in book two, of course, there was a new issue that needed to be addressed. And Pierce Brown had to do and introduce us basically to that, which is something that doesn't really happen in a lot of the other books, because a lot of the other books, the ending of Golden Sun explains what happens in what is the driving point in book 2 or book 3, Morningstar, and the ending of Morningstar explains what drives Iron Gold. So this was one of those books where the ending of Red Rising kind of wrapped up the plot nicely, and so Pierce had to introduce the problem, which was that when the Golds win or graduate from that first test, they then go into sort of a space naval battle academy. That is because a lot of them are training to become generals and soldiers and commanders of all these ships, spaceships and everything, of these armadas, which is essentially naval battle but in space. And so they need to be trained on how to use that. And essentially it is the test or the games of Red Rising part 2. But Golden Sun has nothing to do really with being there, because the book picks up basically at the end of the academy where Darrow has been placed. He's been doing really well. But of course, the Bologna family still has their hate for him, for what he did to Cassius' brother, etc., etc. And now in this world where there are other goals, those that have already graduated, other goals that wanted to prove themselves, etc., they take their revenge by ganging up on him one day after he is lost one of the tests at the academy, and they literally beat him up and piss on him. And then they transmit this video recorded to everybody, and this severely damages his reputation and basically puts him at square one once again. He ruins his relationship with Nero, Mustang's father. Mustang is not present at this time. She's at Luna on the moon with the Sovereign and Cassius, and basically he is now shoved to the outskirts of Gold society, even though he's still in the same room as Nero. And now Darrow needs to face the problem of working himself back up to being the Gold, while the Gold that everybody looks to, the Gold that everybody fears, while still advocating for the Sons of Ares mission, which he encompasses, because at this point he hasn't even heard from them yet. All this time that he's been training and everything like that, he has not heard from them. And this obviously is revealed why later on, etc., etc. But he now doesn't know what to do. It's his dead wife's dream to liberate the colors, etc. So he's still trying to carry that on, but he's now trying to figure out what to do because it just seems all hopeless and lost. And his solution is to attend this ball with the Adradomus family to see all the families of the Golds, whether it is Mustang, the Bolognas, the Sovereign, which is the head Gold that controls the entire solar system, and basically cause some chaos and start a civil war, easily leading to the most badass moment in the series thus far, where he stands on that table and he says he has been wronged. So, a lot of key moments, a lot of good moments. Of course, one of the things that a lot of people are detracted from or are focused on is the fact that Mustang is not there. So in the beginning of the book, she appears to be really close to Cassius. It is revealed why later on. And as the Civil War starts, as Darrow and his partners kind of align the Adradomus family against everybody, trying to put Adradomus on top and use this motivation of him being a king to kind of motivate the Civil War, motivate Mars and everything like that. This is basically to kind of like to kind of have a legitimate reasoning for what he's doing, because obviously not everybody knows why he's doing it, and the fact that he's a son of Ares, a boss red, like all of that is still under wraps. But of course, Mustang is doing a thing. She's obviously still sympathetic to Darrow, and of course this is revealed in their different ways and interactions and things, which Darrow believes, of course, but it doesn't it still affects him, of course, because he still goes through all these things with her brother, the Jackal, with her father, in an attempt to kind of say, hey, I'm doing this. I don't know what you're doing over there, but I still need to do my own thing. And he just has to have faith and believe that Mustang is still on his side, which of course it is revealed. And of course, she has been helping him a lot more. Of course, before the Civil War starts, before the iconic moment of I have been wronged and I have been taught by Lorne, our coast, there is the moment where Darrow drugs Rogue and plans to basically blow up the gala, and instead does everything that I've just said. The return of Rogue is kind of wasn't really that important to me. I think that was just basically because of how I read Red Rising. He was just one of those characters that I hadn't really focused on, because there was Cassius, there was Pax, there was Titus, there was Flichner as well. So there were so many other characters in book one that I hadn't really focused on what their friendship meant, but it was quite clear that in the beginning of book one, Pierce Brown does a very good job of establishing that Rogue means a lot to Darrow. And of course, Darrow goes on this journey of the war. He goes on to fighting other people, basically causing chaos. And Rogue soon becomes the symbol to represent what Darrow is fighting against. Because he and Darrow are friends, of course. They are friends. But important to remember that all these things that are happening for Darrow, when he is winning, when he is gaining help, when he is making friends and comrades, that his way of thinking is still seen as taboo and wrong in society. This is a society that was built to make it seem as if goals are the kings and the gods, and to go against them is to go against societies, to go against order and invite chaos and destroy society. And we're kind of always led to believe that, hey, this isn't a bad thing, where what Darrow is doing, what the Sons of Ares is doing, and because there are always all these golds and all these other colors and everything like that are with Darrow. And I think that kind of does 2 points. Obviously, it shows that people are ready for change, people are ready to fight, but it also shows that there is those that are still sympathetic for the system. They grew up in the system. They believe that though the system may have some nasty elements, some not so agreeable elements, the gold system of hierarchy, of order, is still more beneficial than what Darrow and the Sons of Ares is advocating for. And of course, what happens at the end of the book is that Rogue essentially becomes the embodiment of that, a reminder that, hey, regardless of how sympathetic some of the golds are to Darrow, there are those that are still are for the system because they believe in the system. They believe rather than destroying it, they can change it and it can be better for other colors, but maintain the positives or what they deem the positive is. And for me, I was kind of okay with Rogue up until a certain point. He didn't really have a big influence on me in the first book, like I said, but there was definitely a point in book two where I was just like, no, he's kind of immature, he's childish in how he's reacting and feeling with Darrow, and he kind of feels betrayed. In this book as well, you get the reveal of Ares, which, surprise, surprise, is Flichner, the proctor of House Mars, and of course, Cerero's father. Now, of course, this is kind of introduced around the Sovereign, which is now the character that Pierce gives us to kind of put over there, to say that, okay, whatever we do now in book 2, in book 3, which is the end of the original trilogy, the end of the Darrow POVs, this is the character that we're going to be end goaling for. So whatever we do now is in the end goal to defeat her, which I'm assuming would be in book 3. And of course, during this, you introduce that, hey, actually all the best gold fighters and everything are around her, and Flichner is one of them. And then it's revealed, of course, that Flichner is Ares, which I did not see coming. That was a good moment as well, the reveal, and of course, what comes later. Another good point for this book is the introduction of the other colors. So as Darrow now ramps up his Civil War, he basically introduces the blues, he introduces the yellows and reds and and greens in different ways. But most importantly, he introduces us to Ragnar, the Obsidian. And this character to the series was just one more thing that blew this book out of the water, way above all the others. And it was essentially the non-gold equivalent of Severo, but as Ragnar. And it kind of embodied it, because it kind of felt, at one point in the book, it kind of felt like, though Darrow is a red that is advocating for the Sons of Ares, advocating not for a democracy, but for because he's very adamant that it's not a democracy, even though it is. But he's advocating for all these things, but he's surrounded by golds. He is a red made gold that is now advocating for all this stuff with golds still. So the attachment to Ragnar kind of brought that aspect in, and Ragnar is just such a lovable and amazing character. But of course, what makes this book amazing is the ending. The betrayal of Rogue, the betrayal of the arrival of Cassius, and the death of so many people, including Lorne, including Victra, or what it may seem as Victra, and so many people, including Fitchner. Fitchner arrives with his head chopped off in a box with grapes, and it is just, there's literally, this ending was insane. It had me going insane because Darrow could do nothing. Rogue had paralyzed him in a way that he could only sit there and watch as his friends were torn apart, his allies were killed, and he was powerless. And to know that it was Rogue, to know that the Bellonas were behind it, Cassius was behind it. But of course, this doesn't go right, which is a staple in Red Rising, the series, and Pierce Brown, because literally every chapter will have you thinking it'll go one way and you have no idea which way it will go. It will go in the opposite way. It might go that way. It might go up. It might go down. You have no idea what will happen in the next chapter. And that is a continuous thing that happens throughout any book you read in the Red Rising series. So yeah, the best package thus far. Now, Morningstar. So everything happens in Golden Sun, and Morningstar sets up with the premise that he is still in prison. The Jackal has betrayed him. The Jackal was a key point and key ally of Darrow in Golden Sun, who obviously was going after his own goals and own ambitions and everything. And of course, this was not meant to be. His entire motivation is wanting his father to be proud of him, but his father replaced him with an adopted son, not Darrow, another adopted son, who then he secretly has killed. He builds this media sort of powerhouse that he can now control the narrative, he can control the propaganda, he can control the media, and he helps Darrow up until the point where it becomes clear that he cannot win his father over. And then at the end of Golden Sun, when everybody's dying, Lorne, etc., he kills his father on top of it. And this is obviously because he now decides that he needs to align himself with the Sovereign. Even though at this point in time, Darrow did win Mars. They did win the battle together. But for whatever reason, he switches sides. He then joins the Sovereign and becomes an integral part of what that entire scene of Darrow watching his friends be killed. But of course, this is another thing that now motivates and sets back Darrow. So now the ending the ending of Golden Sun sets the precedent of Morningstar. It is basically, how is he gonna get out of jail? How is he and Victra gonna get out, and how are they now gonna basically get back to their feet? How are they gonna basically get back to the rebellion, etc. And that is the motivation for the book. To see that what Darrow went through, to see what he has to go through to get back, and to see how he will be able to win the war, if he will be able to win the war, and go from there. The key points for this book, in my opinion, or my favorite moments in this book, Severo releases the video of when the Sons of Ares made Darrow. So the entire solar system now knows that Darrow is in fact a red made gold. And when he and Victra are but broken out. He has to have obviously a surgery again because he's been severely tortured and mistreated in prison, obviously, because it's the jackal. He's been severely mistreated, and because of this, he gets rid of the sigils, which is a mark of him being a gold. And he becomes the first person in a very, very long time to not have any sigils. Another key moment, which I did not know this. So, before I tell you the key moment, I found out that Pierce Brown puts names in a hat and randomly pulls them out. And this hat is to symbolize the death of that character. So whatever he pulls out, he's going to pull it out, and basically that character has to die. And that's now going to be worked into the story, and the story taken from there. Knowing this, after reading Morningstar and finding out that this is why so many characters die in a way that makes me think that, oh, they're going to be around for so long and in the next chapter they die, made me so upset because, of course, one of the people that die within Morningstar is Ragnar, the lovable Obsidian. And I cannot, in my mind, not think that he had done it purposely by pulling his name from that hat. But definitely a traumatic chapter out of nowhere and absolutely unjustified. But yeah. But my key point for Morningstar is that it has the best ending of the entire series so far. So of course, they have had some battles within. I'm not going to go in too much into the battles and everything like that, but they've had some battles. They've gathered some ships, they've won some planets, whatever the case is, and Darrow now sails in a direction with Antonia and Cassius as prisoners. So it's revealed to Luna with their armada. They're about to lay siege, and before they lay siege, him, Severo, and Mustang, who is now with us, decides to release Cassius. Because Cassius, up until this point, has shown like certain attributes that, he's tired and he wants to basically like be far away from this place, far away from goals, whatever the case is. And this is one of the things that detracted from this, because it kind of felt like, okay, Darrow's like really living in his myth now. He's really living in his delusion, and he's defaulting now back to the things I didn't like in book one, which was that he's still making those same flaws, he's still making those same mistakes. And what happens when he releases Cassius? He releases Antonia, and they kill Severo. They take hostage Darrow and Mustang, and they take them to the Sovereign, where it seems like all is lost. And when I tell you that I could not read that chapter, like I think it starts the chapter with Cassius shooting Severo, and I had to stop it. I seriously considered DNFing the book at that point. And I will admit, the chapter started like this, and I couldn't read this book apart. So I was like, and I was literally just skimming through it at this point, because I was like, no, this can't be. I was just like, this can't. Because I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that Darrow had now trusted Cassius again, just for him to turn around like I was shouting he would, and kill Severo, take them hostage, make Darrow look like a fool, weak, and basically the entire rebellion now is in jeopardy, because now he's sitting in front of the Sovereign with the jackal being on Luna, his arm cut off, because of course, during all of this, Cassius is allowed to cut his arm off. Lo and behold, for all of it to be a plan for Darrow to get in the room with Sovereign, Mustang, and Cassius, where they can then defeat the jackal, kill the Sovereign, and kill Aya, which was so unfair because there's a 4v1 and she was Lorne's best student. But I mean, that ending was amazing. Like, I was so relieved. And of course, Severo, his body being there, it was actually not dead. He was just pretending to be dead, because there was a whole thing behind that. But he isn't dead. He rises and they defeat everybody and they win the war. And this was, it was an emotional, turbulent time, roller coaster, but oh my gosh, what an ending to the war. Obviously, the negatives. The book was good, but I wouldn't say it was a better package than Golden Sun compared to that. There, like I said before, you were going through moments where I felt like he was kind of detracting back to the character that I didn't initially like. Obviously, Golden Sun elevated him to a level that I can understand him and understand the characters in the Red Rising series is a lot more flawed and fractured and etc. But it was kind of hard to remember that while reading Morningstar. And his decision to not kill Lysander, which is the Sovereign's grandson, and I think Lorne's grandson, but he has a relationship to Lorne. I just can't remember if it's his grandson or son. But anyways, he decides for Lysander to go with Cassius, and Cassius will take him across the universe and somehow change him and influence him and let him grow up to be believing in what Darrow, Mustang, and all of them had fought for. I don't know why you and I, if you had read that scene, you would know that was never really going to happen. But I digress. And of course, the arrival of Mustang and Darrow's son. That was also something that was just absolutely amazing. I mean, the ending of that book was like 5 out of 5, like 10 stars regardless. And all these books are works of art. Don't get me wrong. I rate it, and I will harp on speciality, what makes the book stand out, the key moments, etc. But I will not stand here and allow for the fact that, hey, these books are all amazing. These books are heavy, hard-hitting, emotional roller coasters that will have you angry, happy, upset, furious. Any single emotion you will feel it while reading this series. But that was book 3, and Iron Gold was book 4. Now, just before I get onto Iron Gold and my thoughts on it and everything, which will probably be the freshest because I read those 3 books over a month, I want to say that, or let you guys know, that the first 3 books, which is Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morningstar, these are all books that are told from Darrow's POV. There's a first-person POV book, and all of it is coming from Darrow. But the books afterwards is sort of to kind of show you what Darrow's impact on the solar system has been. So I'm assuming from this Iron Gold and the books onwards, they are all POVs from other people. So this is one of the things that I actually loved about this series, because I enjoyed the fact that not only did we get Darrow, but we got the other POVs of other colors and other people impacted by Darrow and the war and the rebellion. Because it felt very much like the monopoly of the story was told from Darrow's side, but also it kind of, because he was a red made gold, again, there was a lot of presence of gold there. So it was very interesting to get Inferium, Lyra, Lysander's, other people's POVs. Obviously, Lysander is a POV unto itself because he watched Darrow and then kill the Sovereign, and Cassius had then take him, the one person that was probably the reason for the Sovereign's death, take him and become a parent to him. But he had a red and a gray's POV of the world, and it's so interesting. It was so interesting to see the world building and the world opinions of these other people. And really, that was also, I think, something that was missing from the first 3 books, as perfect as they were, because suddenly you had you had this massive universe. You had the blues, you had the greens, you had every single other color, but now you only ever had Darrow's opinion, Darrow's not opinion, but what he saw and how he interpreted it and everything like that. And it was just you and Darrow, and to have that expansion through these other characters is such a masterful addition to this universe, and I cannot understate that enough. But what this book does is shows everybody that's ever read any sci-fi book about rebellions and everything like that having the war and rebelling against oppressors and everything like that is sorts of the easy parts in a weird way. Because this book goes to show that, hey, just because the rebellion is over doesn't mean that everything is solved. In fact, it means that a lot of things are actually worse, because now you have the system of the losers, the victors, and those that have been affected by both, those that are in the middle. And now you need to build a society where all of them are happy. And you need to build a society where all of this works without collapsing, without taking from one another and everything like that. And that is hard. Building a society and building a democracy after all that war and killing and colorism and all that is extremely hard, and is harder than actually raising an army and winning the rebellion. So this book does a great job of showing that what Mustang and Darrow, as rulers of this democracy, shows basically that they're not beloved, they're not rule, they're not gods to everybody, and there are people that dislike them, there are people that stand against them, and there are people that would rather see them not be there at all. Never mind the fact that even though the sovereign is gone, the Ash Lord and the Rim are still independent. They're still fighting against them, and it's no doubt going to lead to war as well. But I'll have to say that as much as I enjoyed this book, if you enjoyed happy endings and you wanted to see Darrow win and Darrow be happy and everything like that, I would genuinely suggest stopping at Morningstar, because though it is the best ending of the series, it is also the happiest ending apparently for the entire series thus far, including the books I have not read. This book is essentially about 400 or 500 pages of the ruining of everything that Darrow and his friends have worked for, the ruining of Darrow's character and legacy and everything he has built, kind of a reversal of the last three books, and that it will end in war. You have Lyra, which is suffering on Mars, and then she's picked up by the Telemuses, and she becomes ingrained in the scandal, which ends up with Mustang and Darrow's kid being kidnapped. You have the plot line where Darrow is still fighting the Ash Lord. He is absolutely motivated to defeat him and by end this war by capturing every single planet and basically eradicating any resistance. But the Senate do not want to give him power because they do not want to keep fighting. And of course, this leads Darrow to become an outlaw against the democracy he built and go act on his own. And it's kind of revealed at the end that actually this was all for naught. That Darrow's enemies, in fact, he has no clue of them, and he has kind of alienated the society he's built. He's alienated his Howlers, he's alienated Severo, and he is essentially the Reaper, and the Reaper alone. He is not a father, he's not a red May Gold, he is none of that. And Imperium is the embodiment of the hatred that everybody in the society that does hate Mustang and Darrow, he is that embodiment. He is the reason, he's not the reason, he is the viewpoint of all of that. He worked for the resistance. He was Trig's boyfriend. He is connected to Holiday, but he hates all of that. And he is the one who is put in charge of having to kidnap Pax. And that entire storyline is still going because it doesn't end with, because all the stories kind of interlinked. They're not like four random POVs. Darrow is obviously doing his own thing, but Lyra, when she comes to the Telemuses, she becomes prey to Imperium, who then uses information and her standing to kidnap Pax and Victra and Severus' child. And obviously, he has a change of heart. Not obviously, because I don't think that's really obvious, but he has a change of heart. But getting the children back to Mustang, the new sovereign, and their parents is not as easy as it initially is made out to be. And of course, the other POV is Lysander and Cassius. The introduction of them, to see that Cassius has not been able to convince Lysander that it was all right, that what he did, what Darrow did, and all of them fought for was the right thing. Lysander is really not convinced. He gets not integrated, but introduced to the goals of the Rim. He sees that their society still works and is a more perfected version of the sovereign's original society. And now he aligns himself with them against Darrow, because obviously he hates Darrow. Darrow killed the sovereign. Due to his actions, Lorne died. So that whole thought process of, oh, it's going to come back to haunt him. Hello, it comes back in book 4. And of course, the look into Cassius and Lysander's relationship, and to see that fall apart as he realizes that he has not been successful in teaching Lysander all these things, in teaching Lysander that, hey, this is the right way, that this is what they fought for. Because essentially at the end of this book, all of that and all of these characters have essentially guaranteed war and the return of war to the solar system. But I cannot understate how much I am loving this universe and all these characters enough. I think when I read Red Rising, I somehow accrued more life experience and scenarios and these different characterizations and stuff like that has happened to me in the time between I've read Red Rising and between Golden Sun. All these things that have happened to me that made me appreciate and glean the nuances and the natural plot lines and the natural circumstances of the Red Rising world a lot better. And that made it way better to read the other books compared to when I read Red Rising. Because Red Rising at that point in time just felt like another Hunger Games-esque book. That really did help. And you can kind of see it, in our war-torn world. In the world that we have now, you can really just look at these different things, the people that we know, the politicians, whatnot, and you can see the characteristics that Pierce is putting from the real world into this book. And I love that. Like I said, I'm into politics, so I love the inclusion of that aspect in that world building as well. And I cannot understate it enough how much these books are a work of art. I want literally every single one. I want Red Rising all the way to book 7. I want to be able to read Red God and know the exact feeling that all these other people that have been waiting years for Red God to appear. But I am taking a break now from reading it. It is a lot. These 3 books are all heavy, all emotionally packed in depth, and it's just so much. And I just wanted something lighter to read for a bit now before I continue reading book 5, 6, and 7. As well as the fact that some of these people have been reading, had to wait for the book. When the book came out, they didn't just come out immediately after one another, like Devin and Cola, for example. So I want to take a break now from sci-fi. I want to take a break, and I just want to go through something like a little bit more easier reads into other genres. Like I've done a quick return to romance for Book Talk books. I'm not sure what I'm going to read afterwards. I know there is a sci-fi book that I did want to read, but I'm a bit hesitant to get back into sci-fi because they all seem to be sort of that same thing. A lot of pages, a lot of depth, a lot of emotion, a lot of traveling, a lot of impact on the soul. So I do think like I need a palate cleanser, and that's what I'm going to be doing now. So it's going to be a while before I read book 5, 6, and 7. But also, just let me know if you read these books, if you're on Red Rising or if you're on Golden Sun. Tell me your favorite moments. Tell me your reactions, all that and more. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. So if you guys see any good videos, because I love those videos. Like my feed and stuff has been filled with people reacting or people making parodies of these scenes and stuff. And it's really such a big community that Pierce Brown has, that Red Rising has. And I would love to see what you guys are seeing, your guys' opinions and everything. So if you guys aren't already, please follow me there so we can interact and so we can build that community. But until the next time.